Hello guys, this is Gosia from Cosmic Agency. Finally I'm here to present you with the first video about Egypt, and it's going to be different videos, different types of conversations, different people. Now this is not going to be some kind of a special topic that was built just around the subject of Egypt. This is not how it came about. What I'm going to present to you throughout these videos is basically different chats combined into this Egyptian series, but it's not a complete presentation how it could be, you know, from the very beginning. You know, Egypt was a very fine civilization. It began, no, it's not gonna be like this, okay? So guard your expectations here. First, in this first video, I'm going to show you some conversations with Swaruu and Dhor K'aal'el, where they are both talking about how it was back then for the stellar people, extraterrestrial people, walking among the people in Egypt. So that's why the title here is Stellar People, Ancient Egypt and Stellar People. Then the further episodes will be actually about Akhenaten and Nefertiti, and this is a very interesting moment. I'm sharing this because with Nefertiti and Akhenaten began the Kabbalah. So you're going to see that story that's going to be told by Swaruu as well. And then in another video, you're going to see Athena, that was last year, Athena talking about Egypt. And Athena also responding some of your questions, because it was at the time where I was collecting the questions from the public and passing them on to her. Not all of them, of course, but yeah, she answered many of them. Let's just remember very fast how this happened with Egypt. The pyramids, by the way, are not going to be discussed in this series because I already have a detailed video on the pyramids. I'm going to link it in the description box, and there's also other conversations on the pyramids with Yaski. You can see it all on our website. So the pyramids will not be discussed, but just to get some kind of a chronological timeline, more or less, the pyramids themselves were constructed, well, very long time ago. It goes all the way back to times of Atlantis. Sphinx is actually much older than the pyramids, and they serve different purposes, as you can see in that video about the pyramids. And then going forward, well, we have the war in Tiamat, the floodings, and the imposition of the so-called 3D radiation bands, and the moon. And all this is a very general timeline, because you do have to remember that especially before 12,000, before the imposition of the so-called matrix, time was very funny, as Yaski says, and it's very difficult to calculate it in any way. So the time that we are talking about here in this specific video is that time after the imposition of the so-called 3D matrix, where the stellar people were among the so-called native population. Native population was very weakened and mentally destroyed after all these different events, and there were also some stellar people left behind here as well. So the extraterrestrial people were coming in here trying to guide and help and inspire this population towards something positive, with the goal of removing that, you know, the whole Van Allen situation, at some point. So this is the time we will be talking about, when they were here among the people, okay? Until the moment when the cabal, so-called cabal, begins to take grip over the earth. And this is when Nefertiti and Akhenaten's story begins, and that's going to be for the next video. So with that in mind, I think that's all I wanted to say as an introduction. Enjoy the video, and I'm going to say a few words at the end. See you there. Conversations with Swaruu of Erra. Originally in Spanish, around 2019. After the flood of Tiamat, the civilization that gained strength was Egypt. Even more than Sumeria, which was mostly reptilian-based. Egypt was a holistic cosmopolitan, Federation starship base. This even within the newly imposed 3D. Even damaged by the flood, the pyramids once again provided electric light to the subterranean facilities and the city above. The people there, of Lyrian origin, I am referring to the natives. They were being guided into an advanced holistic civilization. Who were guiding them? Multiple Federation races. And even with a very victim mentality, they were managing to get ahead under the guidance of the stellar people. Since the ET intervention was already in their memory, the Tiamat Wars and all that, there was no need to apply the Prime Directive. It did not apply. Egypt was a civilization that had heliocentrism as its core, within a Parthenon of gods that also focused everything on heliocentrism. But being an advanced society, the sun was not considered as a god in the modern theological aspect imposed by the Church, the all-powerful Jehovah concept. The sun was worshipped for what it is, what gives life, what causes plants to grow and provide food, what gives warmth and security. And not only the sun was worshipped, but everything was respected and honored. Plants and animals, people, situations, very much in connection with Mother Earth. There were no slaves in Egypt. All that is a lie. Nor were there any feuds of wars with neighbors like with the Nubians to the south, as modern human historians say. Everything was development, peace, modernity, advanced society, equitable, advanced healing, even in 3D, all with a view to the Federation withdrawing the bands when they saw the negatives already arrested. What date was this, more or less? From 12,500, but up to where? I am talking from 10 or 9,000 years to about 1500 BC, until Akhenaten, according to the official dates. Another chat. So stellars come in and make favorable changes to a population, and they are greatly appreciated. Since they have powers, mostly technology, As soon as they leave and people no longer under the tutelage of those stellars, they start exaggerating attributes and pin things on them as a snowball effect over time. My point here is that what you have as gods in written history is something based on an actual stellar person, but have things hung on them that may or may not be attributes of that actual person. Sometimes they are not people, they are peoples. Sometimes they are neither peoples nor persons, as in the case of Horus, who is a ship, but they are represented as a person. Horus is said to be the son of Ishtar and Osiris, but it is modifying or distorting things. They refer to the ship that is the creation of Ishtar and Osiris. The truth is simpler. Stellar people, quite regular and ordinary from the stellar aspect or point of view, are exaggerated with attributes of worship, all of which are of human origin. Therefore, from these arises the idea to which I subscribe, that humans cannot be guided from a stellar position, because it ends in the same thing, Ishtar, Osiris, and so on and so forth. Because, objectively speaking, no one was either Ishtar or Osiris, as they are characters created by snowball effect, with few traces of the originals, depending on how you look at it. So, as you see from this short conversation, they were taken as gods, as we all know. And this is something that is very important, because this is something that I do not want to repeat ever. That's why we always stress it's very important not to idealize them, not to put them on posters. As I saw a comment just recently, someone very passionately wanted an idea to put them on posters and have it, there on the wall. I'm not sure they would be totally for that, even though I'm sure they would appreciate the thought. However, let's remember they are just people like you and me. If you want to, put them on a wall, well, put someone you admire from your life on the wall. Would that feel right? Right? Well, maybe not. But remember, they are people, and they do not want to be worshipped or idealized in any shape and form. And as you see here from this conversation, here Swaruu said clearly, it is not a very good idea, as she said it back then. I'm sure it's still valid. It's not a very, very good idea to guide the humanity from the stellar perspective. That's why we need to appreciate so much all these different details that we have shared throughout the years through Yaski and Athena and other girls and boys, and now through Mari, about their everyday life, about the struggles they have, about the problems, about the challenges, about anything that goes on in their lives that makes them very human-like, very like us. So that's why I think it's here we have another reason why so much is shared, and so much we have shared about these details about them as people, so that they can have a different approach to guiding humans, not from this perspective of someone above, someone as gods, some superiority, but someone who is having the same type of life's problems as you are, and more. So I think that's a very important point here. Anyway, keep enjoying the video. Another chat, conversation with Dhor K'aal'el. There were no prime directive rules back then in Egypt?
They were different. The prime directive back then did not apply because Egypt was an interstellar port. Egypt cannot be understood without the interstellar component. Now, on Earth, civilization is way less advanced than back then. So, as it is not advanced enough, the prime directive comes into play. Egypt was interstellar, so no prime directive. Earth, present civilization, not interstellar, so the prime directive must be observed at all times.
So it was interstellar before the 3D imposition?
Yes. Even during the imposition, it still was interstellar. Egypt was the greatest and most advanced civilization to emerge after the 3D imposition.
How was it interstellar if the belts were imposed already?
It started before and lasted after as well.
So when did it stop being interstellar and why?
Because of the negative intervention. Reptilian, Cabal, where it started exactly with Akhenaten and Nefertiti.
But the reptiles were here already. That's why the 3D was imposed, among other reasons.
Yes, but they had no power, or not enough. That was the exact turning point where they started to gain power.
They started gaining power even though they were closed down with 3D belts?
The flood defeated them and they had no power. They had a lot of power before the flood. Then they lost it and only regained it at that exact Akhenaten-Nefertiti point in history.
But why did Egypt stop being interstellar? I still don't understand that part.
The reptilians were closed down, not the rest of the species.
Right, so why did they decide not to be interstellar, the rest of the species?
Reptiles were gaining power, dissolving the place, transforming it into something undesirable to the rest of the races, preferring not to come close to Earth any longer, changing the circumstances around Egypt.
Another chat. As I have said so many times before, we are no better than any one of the humans. But, like it or not, we do understand more things, as it would be expected. So anything we do or say becomes relevant. Now, not so much so, but back in Egypt, our word was gospel. All I had to do was land in front of everyone and say the magical words, "I am this and that, and I have returned as I see my land is in jeopardy." And that minute I was queen again. It was that easy and fair play. Now it is not so easy, but some of that remains. Things were much simpler back then. That power was too great. At that time, when you used to land, local people knew you were a Taygetan, or they perceived you as some star goddess, or they turned you all into gods at a later time. Yes, they did. Taygetans are for them also Nephilims. All stellars are gods to the ancient people. But I mean, at that time they already perceived you as gods, or just ETs, and they turned you into gods later? Because you said it was common for ETs to be walking among humans back then as ETs. No, as gods. They saw them all as gods, even walking among them. Why did they perceive you as gods? Because in their eyes we could do anything. And you didn't try to tell them, no, we are not? They would not hear us, not at that. And many stellars also abused their technological power. I see. Did you have starseeds at that time? Apart from the fact everyone is? Immersion programs? Yes, always have been stellars around. But immersion programs were not really necessary, as you could just go there. You were welcome. Wow, this is so fascinating. And how would you define your mission for the Earth at that time as comparing to now? What did you try to accomplish back then? Also wake people up? Cabal wasn't present yet, right? It started with Nefertiti and Akhenaten later. So what was the goal back then? To make people go into the right direction in order to be able to remove the moon matrix. To have them evolve. The people there were primitive as the result of the destruction of the time and wars, pole shift and flood. And everything would have gone well had it not been for Akhenaten and Nefertiti. Okay, so this is a wrap for today's episode. Just a few more comments. Here, where it says that finally they had to retreat, the stellars left, and the dark side took over. This is where Akhenaten and Nefertiti started to change things around with the cooperation of the regressives. And here, you just have to put this in here. This is where the technology of immersions came in as a tool to come in. This was said somewhere in one of the videos. I actually tried to look for it. I couldn't find it very fast, so I gave up. But yeah, before the stellar people, they were just walking like everybody among the people, mingling. But then when they left, when the dark side took over, this is where slowly they started to come in here in immersions. So the technology of medical pods was actually mixed with the technology of the entertainment immersions, and this is how the incarnational immersions into this reality began. So they started to come in here as themselves, but mingling at the same time as humans without being recognized. And this became fast one of the very common, most common ways for the extraterrestrials to come in here, be humans, live among humans unnoticed most of the time. That's it for now. I have to talk a bit low because I'm actually not at home. I am in this kind of a location where the walls are very thin. It's after 10, so I have to be careful. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you soon in the next part. See you soon.